Hi everyone, my name is Sanoth, and today I want to talk about Alzheimer's in a movie called Still Alice. This movie came out in 2014 and it stars Julianne Moore, Alec Baldwin, Kristen Stewart, Kate Bosworth, and it's a really good movie. It has to do with a young university professor of linguistics that gets a rare form of Alzheimer's. Now, in the movie, her particular Alzheimer's is not true. That is fictional. Although there have been cases where very young people, like in their 60s, develop Alzheimer's. In this movie, there's a particular scene where her Alzheimer's is progressing in a way where she goes for a jog and she forgets where she's at. She suddenly stops and she doesn't recognize the buildings, nothing. And then she is doing a seminar to several university students, and she forgets the next word that she's supposed to say, and she just cannot remember it. So she sees that there's something going on, and she goes to a neurologist. They run tests, and it turns out that she has a rare form of Alzheimer's. I knew right from the beginning that this movie was going to be a tearjerker, and it was. I was sobbing. As you guys know, my dad died 5 years ago of Alzheimer's, and it's just a sad, tragic disease that it's just hard for the person that gets it and for the loved ones that have to watch this beautiful, vibrant being just turn into a shell with glassy eyes, laying in bed and just waiting for them to die. In this movie, one of the scenes where I lost it was when she goes on a vacation with her husband, and she goes back into the house and she has to go to the bathroom, and she forgets which door is the bathroom, and she starts looking and she just cannot remember which door is the bathroom, and she wets herself. And Alec comes in and he's sympathetic and he says, let's go get you cleaned up. Now, why I started crying was because early on with my dad's Alzheimer's, we were going to Piers 1 Imports, the store, and I was looking for a table, and I was dragging my mom and dad along with me. And before we went into the store, my dad wets himself. He was wearing light pants, light shorts, and so when he wet himself, you couldn't even disguise it. It was the poor man, you could just see it. And so I looked at my mom and I gave her a certain look to where she didn't say anything. She didn't make him feel bad about it. We just kind of laughed it off. And the reason why we did this is because my younger son has something called Fragile X syndrome. And because of this, he has autism and is mentally retarded. And so it took me 4 years to get this young man potty trained. I always, as a backup, I always had a towel and extra clothing. And the way we laughed this particular event off was that I told him, I said, too bad, Jordan, you can't wear his underwear because his underwear is so little that it won't fit you. And for some reason, it made him laugh, and we all just kind of laughed. And We just got in the car and went back home. But it was just a sad event because, seeing it in the movie and having this moment being brought back, it must have been just so sad for my dad. This is a man who wanted to look a certain way. He had a proudful way of dressing. He always wore cologne, even to go to bingo. He always had cologne, and his clothes were always washed, and he made sure that they look well. And for him to wet himself in public, it must have been sad and embarrassing, and imagine confusing for him to just lose it and not know where he was going and not remembering that he needed to go to the bathroom. So this movie, as it progresses, you see Julianne, a vibrant, intelligent professor at the top of the field, and she can't remember the next word when she's having a conversation. Or when she meets a person, 10 minutes later, she forgets who the person was and forgets that she already met them. There's also a scene in the movie where she is having a hard time remembering that she needed to go to the university. And so she has to resign from her job. There's also a scene where Alec, because they're so young still, he's a doctor and he gets a promotion. He wants to go to another state and she doesn't want to go because she's so familiar with her surroundings. Of course, she knows that she's already forgetting things, but she's so familiar with her surroundings, she doesn't want to go somewhere else and start at new with not remembering right off the bat where she's at. And so that was another sad event. My dad retired when he was 72. They made him retire. He did not want to. He retired because they, I guess, thought that he couldn't keep up with his work. This man was very physical. He was a handyman, a porter, a electrician, anything that this apartment complex needed, he was there to do a job. And he did it. And he was there for, I think, almost 20 years, if I remember. But that was the beginning of the end for him, because he basically, in his eyes, even though they told him he needed to retire, in his eyes, he saw it as getting fired. And so it was just sad, I think, that he couldn't do a job anymore. And then he starts forgetting where he's at. He starts forgetting words. He gets lost. My mother told me that one time coming home from work, he got lost. He didn't remember the street, the house, the street where the house was in. And he drove around the neighborhood for a while until he remembered the house. And it took him a little bit to say this to my mom because he was just afraid of it, that this was happening to him. So as the movie goes on, again, I highly recommend this movie. As the movie goes on, towards the end, her daughter is an actress and she's taking care of Allice. And so the daughter's reading the next script that she's going to be in, and Allice is just sitting there. and she's pretending to listen. And once her daughter finishes, she comes to her and she's face to face with her. And she says, well, what do you think? What do you think the play was about? And she's just looking at her, and you see that glassy stare, those eyes, that there's a stare that they get towards the end of their disease that, you know they don't recognize you. You also know they don't remember who you are. They don't remember your voice. They don't remember that you're their daughter. You know, as their loved one, when you see this happening, you know this is towards the end of the disease. When they no longer remember who you are, and as time goes on, their body won't remember what it's supposed to do. This is a wicked disease. So I'll talk, as time goes on, I'll make other videos, and I'll talk about a little bit more about what my dad went through and what we went through. Well, especially my mother. My mother was his caretaker. And so as time goes on, I'll talk a little bit about it, a little bit more about it. But again, I highly recommend this movie. Look it up. It's called Still Allice, and it came out in 2014. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that this helps in any way. If you have a relative or a loved one that's going through this, I hope this helps a little bit. See you soon. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.